After the presentation, I'll open up the questions for council, and after that, I'll open up questions from the public. We have a hard stop at 6:45. So thank you all for coming out.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. So we'll start our discussions from the work session 2 weeks ago. August 12th is when we had it. So on the same two topics, Big Creek Parkway and the Holcomb Bridge, Georgia 400 interchange. So just a quick overview of tonight's presentation. So we're talking about the Big Creek Parkway realignment and the T-Plus program savings options. And staff hopes to bring that, if you approve it tonight, then staff hopes to bring three things to the September 9th Mayor and Council meeting on the Big Creek Parkway, which is the realignment, if approved, the delivery method, and the change order to go with the realignment, design of the realignment. And then also, we're going to be talking about the Georgia 400 Holcomb Bridge interchange rebuild partnership opportunity with GDOT. And for that item, if you approve it or approve to move forward, it has a hard deadline and from GDOT, and to meet that deadline, we want to bring it to the September 9th Mayor and Council meeting as well. So just a quick background on the Big Creek Parkway. This Big Creek Parkway is a suggested crossover for Georgia 400 to the north side of Holcomb Bridge. It's a crossing of 400. It's a bypass to the very congested interchange of Holcomb Bridge and 400. And as from the very beginning of the project, it does not have any ramps attaching to Georgia 400. And also to the south side of Holcomb Bridge, we have one way to cross 400, which is just go underneath 400 using Riverside Road. So the design and construction of the Big Creek Parkway project has been funded by T-Plus 1, which was voted on by the public in 2016. And the T-Plus program saving conversations actually started that we were talking today. This started when GDOT approached us about 18 months ago talking about the express lane project that they're doing along 400. And there were some BRT discussions in there. So initially GDOT's plan was not to include the interchange. They're not improving any of the existing interchanges along 400. They want to get access to the express lane corridor from all brand new interchanges. So it was the city's request that every time we talked about express lanes, the topic came up, okay, what about the interchange at Holcomb Bridge? It's bad. We have known that it needs to be improved significantly. So as we were talking to GDOT, they agreed to kind of include it in their express lane project if we partnered with them. So that's where the partnership discussions started. And the BRT piece, if the interchange is not rebuilt as part of the express lanes project, GDOT's initial plan was to install a bus rapid transit station, not a station, but to accommodate a future station a few hundred feet north of the existing interchange of Holcomb Bridge and 400. But when we started talking about the rebuild of the interchange, and if this partnership moves forward, then the opportunity would be to actually accommodate the BRT station, the future BRT station at the interchange of Holcomb Bridge and 400, which is a better location for the BRT station anyway. So again, we're talking about the realignment, the change order for a consultant to design that realignment, and the delivery method for the project. So the most recent public meeting we had on the project was just 3 weeks ago on August 8th, and the last work session I mentioned was August 12th. So this is the project as it's currently approved. This is what was shared with the public in the public meetings before the public vote. So this is just very quickly, the solid blue line is the phase 2, and then solid yellow line is the phase 1. It starts here at the intersection of Holcomb Bridge and Holcomb Woods Parkway, upgrades the existing Holcomb Woods Parkway, and then goes behind Kimberly Clark, goes over Georgia 400, comes down to connect to Old Holcomb Bridge Road, and then continues over the wetlands with a bridge and goes over some apartment buildings to meet Warsaw here with a roundabout. And then this solid yellow is the intersection of Holcomb Bridge Road and Warsaw. This was the original plan that we had. So with these T-SPLOS program saving conversations, this is what we shared at the public meeting on August 8th. And this is the same plan as we shared at the work session a couple weeks ago. So again, what staff was proposing at the time was to leave the Holcomb Woods Parkway upgrade for near-term future, as it said here on the legend, but still do phase 2 exactly as it was before on the east side of 400, but then on the west side of 400, rather than going through wetlands and over apartments, we said just bring it down, use the existing public right-of-way of Old Holcomb Bridge Road and connect to Holcomb Bridge Road at the Old Holcomb Bridge Road signal, and still do the phase 1, which is Holcomb Bridge and Warsaw intersection improvement. And that's a choke point. We kind of needed that anyway. So the two solid line shown, the yellow and the blue, were the staff proposal, and that was the savings we were offering back then. So we've been working for the past 2 weeks. So a few things we heard at the public meeting on August 8th and the work session on August 12th from you, so public, and the input we got from the council. So 3 main things that we have been working on. So the first one was the first action item was to include the Warsaw connection in the project. Just quickly go back. This is this dotted yellow line that staff was proposing to keep for a near-term future. We heard from the public and the council to kind of bring it in. So staff looked at it. Even back then, staff was saying that, yes, that's a very important connection. We want to do this. It's going to be helpful for the project, just distributing the trips amongst a wider range of roads. So it was important back then, and it is still important now. The only issue was the money part, that it was going to cost $5 million, and that was a rough estimate. So we looked further into that. So staff is now recommending to basically reduce the savings from the T-SPLOS program that we were going to get and add this Warsaw connection as a Big Creek Phase 3 into the current project. So we're calling it Big Creek Phase 3 for the same reason for which we initially separated Phase 1 and Phase 2. That's just the timing of thing when we can start and finish construction. So it makes logical sense to call this a separate phase, Phase 3, and still constructed with the T-SPLOS 1 funding that we have available. This definitely needs, one main reason is this definitely needs to be studied a lot more than it already has been. That was just like a line on the aerial map, what we were presenting before, calling it a near-term future phase, but now if you want to bring it forward in schedule, it needs to be studied a lot more. This is basically all 100% private property, so there is some land acquisition involved. And then again, and there's also a structure closer to this area here over a detention pond, so we're going to need that. And again, like I said, the 5 million number is a planning level estimate, so it'll get refined as we look more into that. And it actually may impact, so this is the area we're talking about. This is Holcomb Bridge, this is Warsaw. So this is Old Holcomb Bridge at the bottom right of the screen. This is where the proposed Big Creek alignment could come. And this Warsaw connection would go from here, use this existing private road, which is the Roswell Creek Lane. And then here, we are actually not sure. Ideally, it would come out somewhere here across from Bainbridge Lane, just to make a 4-legged intersection. But then the problem is this and these 2 apartment buildings. The other option is to kind of bring a little bit to the south, which may impact this commercial building, or maybe we can try to squeeze it in between the 2. It looks very narrow, and I'm not sure how we're going to put a road, just behind those apartments. And we could actually bring it further south of this commercial building, but then you are really way too close to the intersection of Warsaw and Holcomb Bridge Road. So the point is we got to study this one a lot more. So it's going to take some time to study. Oh, and forward. So, and then the second last bullet here is so what we were saying is the Big Creek Parkway Phase 1, the Holcomb Bridge and Warsaw Road improvement. And where I'm going to show that map a little later. The current backups, if we didn't if we didn't do Phase 1, which is Holcomb Bridge and Warsaw, the current backups we have on Warsaw today, they extend way beyond where this future Warsaw connection or the Big Creek Phase 3 could come out. So even if we do this Warsaw connection and not do the Big Creek Parkway Phase 1, it'll have this dysfunctional intersection on Warsaw and this Big Creek Phase 3. So we want to keep that in mind when we talk about priority of things. And the start of construction for this one, we are saying it could be spring 2020, so we're a year and a half from now, but it's going to be a comparatively smaller project than the Big Creek Phase 2 that involves the bridge over 400, so it could still complete construction before or by the end of the Big Creek Phase 2 project. So it still kind of accomplishes, even though we start construction later, but it still accomplishes the same purpose of, opening it up for traffic about the same time. So we already talked about this graphic for the Big Creek Phase 3. So one more action item we got at the August 12th work session was the Holcomb Bridge and Warsaw intersection. You wanted us to look into reducing the scope or maybe not do that project as part of T-Splost 1 to save money. So what staff is recommending is to keep that project in as is. We didn't think it would be a good idea to eliminate the project for now, and we didn't think there was anything. It didn't have a lot of fluff anyway. We don't think the scope could be reduced. So Holcomb Bridge and Warsaw, that is a very well-known choke point for the Holcomb Bridge Road corridor as you're approaching towards the interchange from the west side. So extreme congestion along the corridor and at this intersection, it causes some safety and operational issues. And if we improve this intersection as proposed, it would provide smoother access to the Big Creek Parkway, which could be the new Warsaw connection all the way to Warsaw, or the access from the old Holcomb Bridge Road traffic signal, and also provide smoother access to the interchange and the express lanes. One more point to keep in mind that we separated this Holcomb Bridge and Warsaw, the Phase 1, a couple of years ago after the T-Splost vote to kind of expedite the construction. We knew this could be ready and constructed a lot sooner than the Phase 2 that involved the bridge over 400. So we came to you about 18 months and asked for about $2.2 million for the right-of-way acquisition just for the Phase 1. So we are at about 85% on that progress-wise. So we have spent most of the 2.2 by now, and we have spent about $1 million on the design just for the Phase 1. And of course, it included a whole bunch of temporary easements, and they of course come with an expiration date. So if we talk about delaying the project, we'll lose those easements for construction, and we'll have to reacquire them later. So start of construction for this one, we've been saying spring 2020. That was a plan all along. It's like about 6 months from now we could start construction on this one. So again, since it was a request, we just wanted to look into this one in a little bit more detail. So this is a crash history for the intersection of Holcomb Bridge and Warsaw from 2008 to 2012. It shows you the total number of accidents in a year and then the injuries. So all the red boxes is where this intersection exceeds the statewide average. So this is significant for the city. We also have a comparison from within the city. So I shared similar data for the 2 ramps on Holcomb Bridge 2 weeks ago at the work session. Those 2 ramps are actually worse safety-wise. They were in top 10 unsafe intersections in Roswell consistently. This one is a little bit better than them, but still, in 2014 and 15, it was still ranked number 9 and 7, so in the top 10. And then 16, 17, and 18, it's like in the top 20. So still top 20 out of the 100, it's still a significant safety issue, high crash rate, basically. This is just the level of service, is like average delay per vehicle in the AM and the PM. You see some number with the build and no build options. It's currently, so the level of service they run from A being very good to F being the failing grade, very bad. So A, B, C, D are acceptable, and E and F are like failing level of service. So this one has been in the E for who knows how many years, and if you don't do anything, then of course it degrades further. This just shows you the peak hour traffic volume. Yellow is the AM peak numbers, pink are the PM peak numbers, and this is going to make sense when we look at the scope of this Big Creek Parkway Phase 1. So we're proposing dual lanes on both approaches on Holcomb Ridge and the southbound Warsaw. And you can see the heavy left turning volume here for both of those turns. If you look at this eastbound going towards 400, it's not as heavy left turning volume, but the thing is, the Big Creek Parkway one of the Big Creek Parkway accesses off of Warsaw. So we want to improve this, enable traffic to use Warsaw to get on, or just continue here and use the old Holcomb Bridge in the new proposed plan. So depending upon which alignment we approve, this may change. This is the concept as being designed. Like I said, it's about at 85% completion. So you see the CVS corner. So coming from the City Hall, the roundabout side, we're going to keep the one left turn lane that we have and the through lane and a right turn only lane. But all the other approaches, we are going to add a second left turn lane because left turns are very heavy at this intersection. And then on the north leg, that's the Warsaw piece going towards Mansell. We make it 4 lane to the next side street, which is, I believe, Bainbridge, and after that, it kind of tapers back to 2 lanes. So yeah, this is again, the southbound Warsaw. So this backup, you see it extend quite a bit on Warsaw going southbound. So this is that commercial building that we were talking about that may get impacted. Our Warsaw connection or the Big Creek Phase 3 could come out where these trees are or the south of this building, which would be really too close. But no matter where it is, it'll be kind of where the backup already goes beyond. So this is another one of this picture of the southbound approach, and see how the through has cleared and the left turn is still backed up pretty bad. So if we add another left turn lane, that's a proposal, it just helps cut down the green time into half for that approach, which helps the intersection in general. Again, that's a CVS, and now this is the backup in the AM going towards 400. I mean, we've been seeing this for years. There's nothing new there. So any improvement we do at this intersection, even to the side streets by adding left turns, that helps with the overall intersection improvement because you save green time from the side street and give it to the main street so traffic flows smoother. This is now coming from 400 going towards Highway 9. So the through traffic, it's moving better. Then here's this choke point, and this choke point is because of this long left turn lane we have here. So this left turn lane, the traffic spills back into the through lanes. So that's this crowd that you see here. So if it were 2 lanes, we would not have that problem. So it would work again better and cut some green time for other movements at the intersection. So staff is still recommending, as last week, to keep this Big Creek Parkway Phase 1 in the project, and the cost for this one is $7 million. So this $7 million is a much better estimate than the $5 million for the Warsaw connection, the Big Creek Phase 3, because that's a very planning level estimate, but this is based on like 80-85% design. So one last action item we got what we heard at the public meeting and at the work session was to keep the Holcomb Woods Parkway in the project, and the cost for that is $2 million to basically upgrade into a complete street. So staff's recommendation is what we suggested at the work session 2 weeks ago, is to not include it as a full upgrade. What we are saying is, it's existing 4 lanes, and it's an important bike ped connection. We totally get that. There is no question about that. So what we are saying is, don't necessarily include it as a Big Creek Parkway phase or upgrade, but use other annual programs that we have available in the city. So those would be the resurfacing program, striping, sidewalk fund, and the pedestrian safety. And the cost of the upgrade, which staff suggested at the work session 2 weeks ago, was only $280,000. So that's doable using those existing programs. For this one, if we go with the light option, is what we called it, we could finish construction again before the Big Creek Phase 2 completes. So this is actually a diagram. This is Old Alabama, this is Holcomb Bridge, so this is existing Holcomb Woods Parkway. What we were saying is there's 80% of the sidewalk that exists already, so we're saying we can fill in the gaps using the sidewalk program, and we could use resurfacing and striping to repurpose 2 of the existing lanes for bicycles. So that serves everything that was needed by making it a complete street. So we're calling it a simultaneous upgrade, and using other funds, not the T-SPLOST funds. So this, after I guess these 3 action items, the way I suggested the staff recommendation, this is the new graphic. This is not as it was shown 2 weeks ago. This is new. So again, the solid blue goes over 400 and Old Holcomb Bridge Road. And then solid yellow, that's Holcomb Bridge and Warsaw. So the change is this solid green line now. This is the Warsaw connection, Big Creek Phase 3, as we're calling it. So, and we have the legend here that says the blue line is funded by T-SPLOST 1, the solid yellow, and the solid green. Everything is could be funded by T-SPLOST 1 funding. And for the simultaneous upgrade of Holcomb Woods Parkway, we're saying about 3 years. So before the big project opens, after the construction, we could have this upgrade done. So it still serves everything that it meant to do before. So this is the staff recommendation for the Big Creek Parkway. So we are saying, we are recommending approve the realignment as shown on the graphic. So phase 1, Holcomb Bridge and Warsaw, we can start spring of 2020 with the 18-month construction time. Phase 2, that's a big part, bridge over 400. We could start construction in spring of 2021, a year later than phase 1, with a 36-month construction time. Phase 3, which is the Warsaw connection, this could start construction in spring of 2022, 2 years after the phase 1, with a 12-month construction time. So it'll still be before the big project opens for traffic. So if you approve this realignment, we can bring to the September 9th Mayor and Council the change order for our consultant to design the realignment and the delivery method. We have talked about the delivery method at 2 committees and the work session last night. If you want to talk more, we can, but you're still going to see that at the council for approval. So we can take some questions now, but I wanted to get into the interchange slides. They're not as many, but if you have any questions so far, we can take them or continue.
Councilmember Drew.
Thank you, Mayor. Real quick, can we approve this in our work session?
No, we can't, but we can indicate approvals. We can only vote in the council meeting.
Yeah, okay.
But we can gauge the.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Yes, Councilmember Wilsey.
Thank you. Mohammed, thank you for going through all this again and for all the work that you did on the major concerns that we had. Question, what is the order of construction for phase 2 at this point? from Old Alabama to Old Holcomb Bridge, do you know at this point, or is that just a function of design and the build of the
Order of
bridge?
construction?
Um,
Oh, meaning when
Yes,
are
I
we
mean-
gonna do the bridge? When are we gonna upgrade
Correct.
Old
I mean,
Holcomb
do
Bridge?
you know that at this point?
Rob, can you answer that?
Typically for if you can go to the phase 2 graphic. So you're asking basically which end would they start on?
Correct.
We don't know that, and we wouldn't actually specify that in the contract. We know that the bridge over 400 would take the longest, so they would probably start on that first, but whether they would work from east to west or west to east, we wouldn't require that. We would let the contractor proceed however they want.
Okay, sure, great. All right, thank you. Curious.
Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you. Great presentation, Mohammed, very detailed. So two concerns I have are, one, for what you're calling phase 3, that the $5 million is very clear. That's really just perhaps somewhat of a guess.
I would call it a planning level estimate. And all our projects, what you see in the annual budget or at the planning studies, we do these estimates all the time. And they are generally pretty good. It's just that they just get refined as we make progress. Like I said, we don't even know where is the good point to hit Warsaw, right? So of course, when we look at that, we're gonna see, okay, how much is this gonna cost? How much is this gonna cost? And maybe there is a less expensive option in between. It could be less, it could be more. We just don't know that yet.
Thank you for that clarification. My concern is if it were to be more and significantly more, then are we putting ourselves at the risk of phase 3 not occurring in the expected timeline? And I see that as a major risk, because I think if we are going to adjust this, we need to be sure that we're committed and funded to be going to the Warsaw Road. So I just want to state that as one concern. The other concern I have is with the purple, which you're calling the other upgrade, which is the short term. And
Yes,
taking that from other funds, like for example, the sidewalk fund, there's a lot of needs around the city, and I feel there was the expectation, this is coming from the T-SPLOST funds, so that's why I have concerns of taking that from the other funds, where I do think, from the way you've described it, it seems to me like the lower cost way of doing it would accomplish the goals that were intended. So I love that creativity, and I'm definitely open to discussing this adjustment, but it's just I have concerns with where the funding's coming. So those are my two initial thoughts that I have.
sure. So if I could comment on those, the cost is $280,000. So, and we're talking 4 programs. If they're funded at the current level, yes, it's a dent in the overall city's progress in those programs. But this was just like a desperate suggestion. But I actually personally really like it because it's kind of ready for the resurfacing anyway. And it's a small sidewalk gaps. Like I said, 80% of sidewalk exists. So we're talking 20%. We're not talking that much. So it's a sidewalk gap, and there is no public schools there, but there is a private school, the Atlanta Academy, something like that, and there's the Big Creek Park. So proximity, that both of those things, they kind of help with in the priority matrix for the sidewalk money to be spent. And so yes, I agree with the first concern, which is we just don't know enough, and there is nothing we could have done in these 2 weeks to be more certain. But that's how we do all projects. We put a line on a map, and then we study it, right? Sometimes it's feasible, sometimes it's not. But since this one makes so much sense, so it'll 5 million is a good estimate, but still it is a planning level estimate. It may change, it may get refined. But the reason we are suggesting it to be phase 3 is only because, so I understand the importance, but we need to look at what's at stake. This is the Big Creek phase 2, right? A bridge over 400 still connects from one side to the other side of 400 serves the purpose, meets the need and purpose of the project. We don't want to delay this project for this line.
And I certainly don't want to delay the bridge and really the new parkway. But if anything, the Warsaw Road improvements, I'd want to look at that closer and make sure that's not risking really the green line, because I'd argue, I personally don't feel that it ending on Holcomb Bridge is meeting the full intent of what was discussed and what was voted on. So that's my personal opinion.
In the beginning, but
Right.
eventually it'll happen, you know.
Councilmember Tizer?
Thank you. Mohammed, can you give me a rough distance from where it comes over the bridge, makes the circle, and down to where it makes a left turn, right there? Roughly, what is that distance?
Rob, you want to take a guess? I don't know, maybe half a mile? Yeah,
Best guess is half a mile.
So that's a half mile, and then once it takes the turn and then heads up to Warsaw Road, looks like maybe another half a mile?
yeah, maybe less, between quarter to half.
So what's most interesting to me about this alignment is you create a half a mile of 400 frontage, and then you create another half a mile. Other question I wanted to ask you, let me just go back a second. The estimated number of cars that'll go through there a day.
13,000 cars?
So on that 1 mile stretch, with a half mile of frontage and another half a mile across, you say 13,000?
13,000
cars a
yes.
day go past it. The opportunity for some significant economic development along the frontage route, and then in that triangle that it creates at the bottom is fairly significant, and it's in an area that we'd really like to see redeveloped. I think we, about a year and a couple months ago, passed some changes to our code for that particular corner, the kind of buildings that can go there. And I think if you were to tell somebody who was going to put, say, an office building there, that 13,000 cars a day were going to drive past it, I think they'd be very interested in looking at creating that building. So 13,000 cars coming down that half mile and then across the other half mile is a pretty big economic potential for us. And so that's of interest to me. But I would agree that I very much want to see that last piece of green line continue on, because it also allows part of those 13,000 cars to come the other way a lot easier. So to the extent that we can make sure that happens, that would be important to me also.
Yeah. So, actually, yes, that economic development, that's always in the play. One thing actually that came up today was somebody was saying, well, there's a lot of crime in this area. So what happens to that? Well, of course, if you have a lot more cars, a lot more people in the area, that helps with reducing the crime automatically without even any redevelopment. But with the kind of exposure it's going to get, this area, I think it's going to be a very good economic development opportunity.
And I would like to add, we've already had the business community reach out to us about this, and a couple of the property owners that are within that triangle are very excited about it. So I think that what your statement was before, that you felt as though they would be interested, I can tell you that they're very interested from an economic development standpoint. And there are property owners in there that are willing to pump a lot of cash into it.
So I can move into the next.
Thank you.
Thank you. So this is the east-west connectivity of the 400 corridor and, of course, the city of Roswell. So we have this information on our website for the past few months. So the existing situation, it shows you see the river at the bottom in blue, and then we have the Riverside Road, and then the existing interchange of Holcomb Bridge Road. So we got two ways to get across 400 in the city as of today. So what we're talking about, the proposal is the Big Creek Parkway. I guess whether we do the realignment or not, either way, that's another way for our residents to go across 400. If we are able to make this partnership with GDOT, we'll have an improved Holcomb Bridge interchange, which helps the traffic going across 400, and of course the traffic that's trying to get on to 400. And then this orange line is the new express lane partial access. That's the GDOT project. Express lanes only access, but it's still, upon our request, GDOT accepted to allow the through movement across from 400 for local traffic. And of course, the river crossing or the Riverside Road crossing already exists. So we'll have 4 in the future versus 2 if the proposal goes through. And again, this green on the legend, it shows green. So the Big Creek Parkway paid by the city T-Splost money. The improvement of the interchange could be a partnership between GDOT and Roswell. And then this orange line is the express lanes, and GDOT is paying for that. So just a quick background, this is pretty much the same slide. So over 250,000 cars navigate the interchange every day. It has a longer rush hour than anywhere else in the city, with a whole bunch of safety and operational issues. The city did a corridor study with the interchange being the focal point of that study, and studying the intersections approaching back in 2012. And some of the recent projects that city did one and GDOT did the other one, and then we partnered on the third one. That's the westbound through lane, the northbound off ramp, the southbound ramps. They were like a mix of capacity and safety improvement projects. They were good, but they were only short-term, smaller projects. So the T-Splost Tier 1, one of our T-Splost Tier 1 project was the study and design for the interchange, $6 million. And there is no other efforts underway to improve the interchange. So I guess the point to note here is that when the voters approved the T-Splost, they voted for the Big Creek Parkway. At the same time, they also voted for this further study and design of the interchange. The city had always intended to do both. And the city would never recommend for the city to intend to pay 100% for the interchange. That's state road, limited access, highway, and a straight road intersection. So the city's intent was for a partnership. It's just that partnership opportunity has come a lot sooner than we ever expected. We thought we'd be doing this planning and design for the interchange, but with GDOT's express lanes, that opportunity is here, so we have this opportunity to partner. And again, like I said, originally the interchange was not part of GDOT's express lanes project, and the BRT station was suggested to be several hundred feet north of the interchange, which is not the ideal location. And if the partnership is successful, the interchange gets rebuilt and it accommodates the future BRT station at the interchange. So we've been talking to GDOT staff, and GDOT they have submitted a draft memorandum of understanding to us about four weeks ago. So GDOT's suggestion is a 60-40 split of the cost, with 60% for Roswell, depending upon what the city and GDOT can agree on. It could either be yearly installments for the payment, or it could be a one-time upfront payment. So looking at the small and city staff also added several conditions in that MOU that I showed you last time, and I'll quickly go over them today as well. So this is a little matrix. So the cost of the interchange is roughly $38 million. Rebuild of the interchange. The BRT accommodations is $21 million. That 21 is paid for by other monies, not city, not GDOT. So that's on top of everything else. So total is 59, but still talking about the 38, basically the cost of interchange. GDOT suggestion is $23 million from Roswell and $15 million from GDOT, which is the 40%. So the 60-40 split was the GDOT suggestion. So 23 from Roswell, 15 million from GDOT makes the total 38. These are some of the conditions that the city staff added to the MOU. These are all good. 6 listed here, GDOT is accepting, so I think we're good there. There are just several infrastructure improvements or future accommodations, so GDOT is agreeing. A couple of them they are still reviewing are the ones, so we requested to add bike ped accommodations to the new express lane bridge. They have agreed to do a 5-foot sidewalk, but not the trail yet. They are still looking into it, and we are still making the request. It's important for us. So that's still being worked on. And so GDOT is looking at 2 different options for the interchange rebuild. One is a diverging diamond, and staff has some issues with the lane configuration and that. So again, we are still working. So it may or may not be a diverging diamond. They're looking at a couple different options. We are still working with them on that. And a couple of the staff suggestions that GDOT has declined. And staff is okay with these, and we haven't heard from any of you a strong position on these. I'll just quickly explain. So this city's request was for GDOT to abandon the existing Holcomb Bridge right away because the new bridge moves to the north. So city's request was to abandon that right away to the city, and they're saying, like every other project, that is something they talk after the project, not at the beginning, and don't want to make it any condition, which is okay. We can revisit after the construction. The number 2 was city's request for a pedestrian bridge accommodation over the Chattahoochee River bridge on 400. And GDOT is saying that's totally out of scope, and they're not accepting that. And staff is okay with that because we are doing our Chattahoochee pedestrian bridge over the river along Highway 9. So that gets us the bike ped connection over the river. So staff is okay with not keeping this one in the MOU. So staff's recommendation is to, yes, partner with GDOT. We think this interchange, city had always intended for it to go this way. So staff is suggesting, yes, be a partner with GDOT and work towards the interchange rebuild. And but staff is going to need some guidance from you on a counter offer, whether accept GDOT's offer, the 60-40 split, or counter offer. And then this is the one where we kind of have a hard deadline from GDOT, and to meet that, we would want to bring this MOU to the September 9th Mayor and Council. So now we're going to take you to the fun part. So in an effort to facilitate this discussion, staff relooked at all the numbers, and based on staff recommendation, we have this graph and the little matrix, and this, I know this is not ideal, we don't want to look at all these numbers at a work session like this, but I'll explain it, and hopefully it's going to make sense to you guys. So again, these are all the different phases and the projects we want to do on the left. The existing concept is what's approved as of today, the Big Creek Phase 1 and Phase 2. And then the next column, the yellow highlighted columns, are the staff recommendations. So staff recommendation is just really for the projects that staff thinks they're important. And you see numbers, those are the costs. But these are highlighted yellow because there's a drop-down menu, and we're going to come up with the number that you want to come up. Staff recommendation is only what's shown here, but we can change numbers on the fly. So Big Creek Parkway Phase 1, that's Holcomb Bridge and Warsaw. Existing concept as approved is $7 million. It's still in the project. Staff recommendation is to keep it in the project. Big Creek Phase 2, that's a big one, over 400. $47 million before, and now with the realignment, it's 29. Big Creek Phase 3, that's the Warsaw connection. So the connection to Warsaw was kind of included in the Phase 2 in the original concept, but now it's not. So we got to add this $5 million for the Big Creek Phase 3. Holcomb Woods Parkway. So existing concept had the $2 million, but staff is saying don't use T-SPLOST money, use other monies. So that's why you see a 0 here. this Old Holcomb Bridge replacement. So it was a T-Splost 1 project with $3 million in the budget approved by the voters. So we recently did some tests on that, and you were involved. You may not remember, but that bridge was acceptable for the next few years with the volume it has now, which is like 1,600 cars a day, with the it being a dead-end street. But now, if we are going to bring the Big Creek Parkway on top of it, then it's going to be needed to replace. So that's $3 million. We are adding that back in if you approve the realignment. Bridge aesthetics for 2 bridges. So this is a change from 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, we said $2 million per bridge for the 2 bridges, which is the interchange and the GDOT Express Lanes Bridge. GDOT is paying for the Express Lanes Bridge, but they won't pay for anything on the top. So 2 weeks ago, staff recommendation was $2 million per bridge. Now it's $1 million per bridge, and I'll tell you why. So in the existing concept, we didn't have that, of course, but this 2 gets added in the staff recommendation. So this is just a little technicality here. The Express Lane Bridge is basically not eligible for T-Splost 1 funding. So we've been working with our finance department, and we'll just have to look at it again as the program goes down the road. We believe we can find that $1 million somewhere, or just within the funds and within the money that's available at GDOT. So staff is suggesting $1 million per bridge for the aesthetics for 2 bridges. So here's some big numbers, the total of both, and then if you also remember, the city had in the T-Splost 1, city had $6 million for the interchange, and out of that, staff is comfortable, adding 4 here under either condition, under either options, because offering full 6, we may not have that much available by the end. So if you look at the existing concept, if we don't make any changes and not do the bridge aesthetics, but do the project as it's approved, we have $5 million to play with. And if you move forward with staff's recommendation, then in the end we have about 15. So I kind of made the decision, to change some of these numbers from the 2 million for bridge aesthetics per bridge to 1, because of what we had heard at the last work session and some of the conversations with the council, and which was, just kind of flip the offer 50-50, offer 70%, 30%. So most number was 60-40. So GDOT offered 60-40 with 60% for Roswell. So we're kind of flipping that. And this is just staff's calculation. You take it wherever you want to. But my reason for bringing down it to a 15 is this is flip of GDOT's offer. So this is now 60% GDOT at 23 million, and city is 40%. So a flip of GDOT's offer. So on the other side, this is now again the existing concept. Total cost 56, savings is 5 million, and if you go with the staff's recommendation, total is 46, saving is 15, and here's GDOT's request, which is now 23. So based on the 60-40 split in favor of GDOT is 23, but staff is saying if we do the staff recommendation, we could offer GDOT 15, or we could offer more, we could offer less. That's where we need your guidance. So Rob, you want to add anything to? Okay, so
Mohammed, if you would, give us an idea, on, for example, Holcomb Bridge fence, the cost on that project, just so we can put in perspective what $1 million gets us on a bridge.
Yeah, so that upgrade to the fence like a year or so ago was about $450,000. So kind of $500,000 got us that upgrade to that was a replacement of the fence. So if we have double the money per bridge, it could get us a better product. And that was actually a separate committee item a month ago. I wasn't here, I know Rob presented. So we shared some of the graphics from the Atlanta region. And they were like couple, three different options. They were like reasonable. But again, I would just say that what staff had heard in some of the conversations with you is that yes, bridge aesthetics are good. We wanna give them some kind of a Roswell feel, kind of keep it consistent. But at the same time, we also heard from you that the interchange and then the Big Creek Parkway and these phases, the actual improvements, the bike ped connections, the vehicular capacity improvements, they are kind of more important. So yes, we still want to do some aesthetics, but as per staff's recommendation, there's only 2 million. And again, this is all adjustable. Rob can do it here on a fly. If you want to add more here from the drop-down menu, so do 2 per bridge and everything changes. And in the end, we have 13 million here and here to play with. So we can change it to whatever you want to change. And the same pull-down menu is under each one of these, totally up to you. Big Creek Parkway Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3, Holcomb Woods, Bridge Aesthetics. This is just staff's recommendation to, not recommendation, staff suggestion to facilitate the discussion, because we kind of wanted to get to a guidance what to bring to the mayor and council on September 9th.
Councilmember Tizer.
Thank you. Mohammed, thanks. This puts a good amount of pencil to it. I think at the last work session, I may have said switch the 60-40 to 40-60. And as it sort of turns out in your version of numbers, that it really explains to GDOT, why making that change is important. And I kind of looked at it just a little bit differently. I looked at it as $5 million for the Warsaw extension and 3 for the aesthetics. And so if I do that math, it comes out that 15 is a number that makes, it's clearly a defendable number. And is there some risk in it? Sure. But it appears to be reasonably defendable. And I think if we were to take that to GDOT, I think it's got a lot of promise. And, the other thing I'd say is, we're looking at the opportunity of a lifetime to do a couple of things. We get about including the South Bridge, we probably get around $58 million worth of stuff for a $15 million investment. And if you talk about how do you make the T-SPLOST funds go further, if I can make $58 million worth of stuff out of $15 million, that's a pretty good exchange. So, for me, that's kind of how I'm viewing it.
Councilmember Judy.
I tend to agree with you, Councilman Tizer. I believe that the important part for me was seeing Warsaw connected here with the bike ped, as you said, in the conditions on all 3 bridges crossing. Holcomb Bridge is looking at those accident numbers earlier, looking at the ones from the on-off ramps from the last time. It's a big problem. It's probably our largest traffic problem in the city if you talk to many folks. And to turn a blind eye to an opportunity like this that comes along is reckless. And I think we have to take a hard look at this opportunity that's going to come along. I mean, I remember when we first started these conversations and, when's the next time somebody's going to look at Holcomb Bridge? 15, 20 years from now? And so we'd have one bridge across that had no on-off ramp and a defunct bridge 15 years from now. So looking at the future and not just the thing that's right in front of our eyes, this is the prudent thing to do to make sure we look at every which way possible to get this done. And I just couldn't sit back and let this opportunity pass without going through this exercise and really creating that relationship with GDOT and working with them to get what's best for all citizens in Roswell. 3 bridges across Holcomb Bridge. I mean, who a year and a half ago would thought that could even be a possibility? So very excited about this, and the 60-40 or the 40-60 I think is fair. Obviously, the aesthetics are important, and we can get down the road, but obviously we're under a time crunch, so we don't miss the opportunity, because saying no to this would be saying no to BRT as well in the future. So saying no to the BRT, it's not okay with me either, because that's future economic development for our citizens. So I'm excited. I think we need to move fast on this. Make sure we partner with GDOT, and this is one of those things you take I mean, as you put it here, looking at this, the minor risk of what we have to look at in the future to get this
Yes.
done.
Thank you. I mean, of course, I agree with all of that. One clarification, saying no to the interchange partnership means BRT several hundred feet north of the interchange and between the city staff and Marla staff. They don't think that's a good location. That's probably not, nobody's gonna walk several hundred feet up and down just to get to the station. So that would not be a very feasible. So, yeah, so double the benefit, get the interchange rebuilt and get the BRT where it really belongs.
Councilmember Wilsey.
Thank you. Mohammed, do you or GDOT have any projections or scenarios of, I guess, the combined impact of all three, bridges and connections east-west, and what that has on, local traffic for Roswell at this point?
So, yes, GDOT, they have done the analysis for the interchange. They have done the analysis for their express lanes project. And when they did the analysis for the interchange, of course, they kept in the analysis the Big Creek Parkway because that's an existing funded project, though future, but still existing. So they have looked at it, all of that. We are still gonna get more details, but in general, I can tell you that yes, everything is still pretty much needed because for a corridor like Holcomb Bridge and 400, it's just not a one solution approach. It needs several things need to happen for Holcomb Bridge to improve significantly. So that's what we are hoping for. The analysis that we don't have yet is the impact to the old Alabama Road where it's connecting, the impact to the Grimes Bridge, Dogwood area. That's the other side where it connects, and we are still talking to GDOT on those, and hoping for GDOT to kind of do some mitigation as part of their project to whatever is needed. And we just at all times, I guess we should keep in mind that express lanes, it's really just a peak hour thing. When 400 is just choked, that's when people want to go use express lanes. I guess it happens pretty much every day during the peak hours. Some days are worse than not, but then during the off-peak hours, I wouldn't want to go on express lane and pay toll for no good reason. So it's just a peak hour thing. So the impact to the city local intersections adjacent to the area where express lane connect, we're still looking at it, but that would be an impact only for the peak hours.
Yeah, I could just see, all day long, the relief that those three bridges are going to add to the local roads to Old Alabama is just going to be life-changing for all of us.
Yes, definitely, yep.
Additional, yes, Councilmember Zapata.
Thank you, Mohammed, for the presentation. And I want to, focus on two things. One is the Holcomb Bridge and 400 improvements, and the 60-40% that we've been talking about, 40-60, 60-40. So who was involved from GDOT conversations to come up with the 60-40 that we have today on the table?
So GDOT sent us an MOU a month.
Who was the people involved in GDOT?
We got it from GDOT staff.
Okay, at which level do we get from staff to get the 60-40 that we have today?
We have, Rob actually clarified, did we get it from GDOT staff or their consultant? And we have Tim Matthews, GDOT PM for the program, the whole MMIP program. Maybe he can help answer. And that was really the communication that Rob received, so.
The MOU from GDOT is a product of their MMIP staff, GDOT staff, GDOT MMIP staff, along with their legal department, and conversations with the chief engineer and the commissioner.
So, which commissioner? Can you give some names as well? Or?
Conversations and details in the GDOT MOU came from GDOT MMIP staff, Tim Matthews, along with GDOT Chief Engineer Meg Perkle and GDOT Commissioner Russell McMurray.
Thank you. So, my second point here is about the Big Creek Parkway, which I think here we have a dilemma. We have a dilemma on this project because the second design that was presented now seems to be more economical, seems to be faster to build, seems to be not affecting the wetlands area, seems to be not affecting residential area as well. But unfortunately, it's not what was presented for vote, right? I believe that what was presented, the design was presented, was a different design for vote. So I don't know if you can clarify this and see if we can clarify this dilemma of what was voted and what is presented today. That seems to be a better option, what is presented today, but I don't know if it's exactly what's voted at the time that the T-Splot passed. So I don't know if you can clarify this and maybe this dilemma disappear.
Yeah, so,
Rather ask
Yes, good.
David Davidson.
thank you.
Thank you. So the project as presented was always subject to change. The main product of it was the Big Creek Bridge over 400. I mean, that was the major thing that was voted on by the people. The design changes happen all the time. The project, if you actually look at our agreement with Fulton County, what people voted on, the project limit on our project went from Holcomb Woods Parkway to Old Holcomb Bridge Road, which is exactly where this project goes. Now, I know the plan is to tie to Warsaw, and the plan still is to tie to Warsaw, from my understanding. There's no legal ramifications to make design changes. Those happen all the time in the field. Those happen all the time when things come up like wetlands. So, I mean, from a legal standpoint, we're justified with the redesign as long as it accomplishes what the intent of the project was, which is the Big Creek Bridge over 400.
So from the legal point of view, it's not an issue, and so now what might be more subjective is the trust from the community to change a design. So that is it. It's not a legal question. It's a matter of is this going to erode any trust from the community or not, changing the design? I guess is the question for all of us to be answering. I understand and I appreciate that legally it's not a problem to use the second design that have been proposed now. Thank you.
Additional comments, questions from council? Okay, Mohammed, if you would, I'm going to call for public comment in a minute.
Yes.
But what I would like you to do is remind council the comments that you're expecting
Yes.
at the end of this, and so they can ponder what direction they're going. But I would like to hear from the public before we actually express our opinions on it.
So, yes, so for the Big Creek Parkway project, we are hoping, if you choose to approve the realignment, we would want to bring that to the September 9th Mayor and Council meeting, along with a change order for our consultant to redesign the realigned part, and then approve the delivery method to design build that saves time. So yes, these two things, the change order, the delivery method, and the alignment. That's for the Big Creek Parkway. And then for the interchange, so staff, if you choose to partner with GDOT for the interchange rebuild, we would just want to let GDOT staff know the counter offer, if we want to counter offer, and GDOT's hard deadline, for us to meet GDOT's hard deadline, September 9th mayor and council meeting would be the last opportunity to approve that MOU with offer and the other staff recommendation clauses that you saw earlier.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak? Yes, sir, please come forward.
I appreciate, my name is Tom Erdmanchuk. I'm a 30-plus year resident of the city. I appreciate very much all the care that you all are taking with this project. I commuted for between 15 and 20 of those years on 400. So I do have some experience with that. I also have attended the transportation charrettes, most recently the Georgia 400 Express Lanes meeting held by Georgia DOT, and the past Big Creek Parkway meeting held in the council chambers. I appreciate that having a chance to fix 400 and Holcomb Bridge is a real opportunity. I wish the council would look at who that's an opportunity for. And my belief is it is a bigger opportunity for people who don't live in Roswell than for people who do live in Roswell. There's an unlimited supply of commuters who are going south in the morning and north in the afternoon. They have to get across the river, and they'll get across the river on whatever road their GPS tells them is fastest. So if we improve the Holcomb Bridge 400 intersection, their GPS, more GPSs are going to say it's faster to go that way than to go whatever way they're going now. These are people coming from Cherokee County who, some of them are now going all the way to 575 because their GPS says that's faster. They'll come to Roswell instead. They're not coming here to buy anything, they're coming here to get downtown. The same thing, Gwinnett County residents who now use 141. Some of them will be coming our way if we improve this intersection. It's nice to think about the four ways across 400, but basically we're getting three of those anyhow. We're getting the bridge that the city is building as part of the Big Creek project. We're getting the bridge that the Georgia DOT is building as part of the Express Lanes project. And we already have Riverside, and we already have Holcomb Bridge going across 400. So really the one thing that by changing this project that we're getting is an improved 400 Holcomb Bridge to improve traffic for people, yes, who live in Roswell, but much more for people who live outside Roswell. So that is another argument for the 60-40 split. How much of that traffic is coming from outside of Roswell? Well, maybe 60% of it, so maybe GDOT should pay 60%. Another option would be to leave it like it is and encourage the out-of-city traffic to go another way and not come through Roswell. What we're losing in Big Creek is what we voted for, which was a quick connection across 400. The new blue line that uses Old Holcomb Woods or Old Holcomb Bridge goes through already a densely populated area in our city. That road was one that I took when I got off 400 onto Holcomb Bridge to try to go faster along Holcomb Bridge westbound. and at traffic time, it was bogged down. So the blue line serves condos and apartment complexes and commercial between Holcomb Bridge and the blue line. There's already traffic on that. We're adding more traffic to it, making the whole project less functional. Whereas the Big Creek Parkway, the dotted red line on the northern part of the map, has no connections to it other than the connection to Old Holcomb Bridge. It's a much shorter project, and it would be much faster. It also comes into Warsaw Road farther to the north, which does give more stacking room for traffic going southbound on Warsaw toward Holcomb Bridge. And so the Red Line project is much less likely to back up. The new connection to Warsaw goes through an apartment complex. So apartment complex parking lots are going to be opening directly onto it. Those people might not be thrilled to have all the extra traffic, but the folks who are trying to get from Old Alabama to Warsaw also won't be thrilled to be having all the apartment traffic that they are encountering, that they would not have been encountering on the Red Line. So I appreciate all the attention you're giving this. I do think it's attractive to have the bus connection where it needs to be. And I empathize with your difficult decision, but I hope you will consider that we're really not saving all that much money, and what we're giving up by greatly lengthening the length of the project through densely populated, fairly high traffic areas does not give us what we were hoping for with the Big Creek Parkway project.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward and speak? Please come forward.
Andy McGarry, I live in Roswell. Couple quick questions following up. Oh, is there a microphone here? Yeah, Andy McGarry, I live in Roswell, and I had a couple quick questions on this project. I want to follow up. I think this gentleman who spoke earlier was very astute in comments about the project itself. This realignment, I don't know if I have my math right, but we're saying this realignment will save us $18 million doing kind of the blue line versus the red line. Is that correct?
Yes.
Sir, if you would ask your questions and then.
Yeah, that's,
get
yeah,
back
okay,
down
and then what I'm looking at, again, is the same length of this road, the blue line and then the light green line. We were talking about distances. It looks like 1 mile, another half mile, almost 2 miles, where the red line is much shorter. Also, the blue line, I'm a little dubious, that's all along commercial, which would be all partial takes. You'd have all construction easements. You'd have damages to the commercial properties from the taking. So you have all these expenses on commercial property, which is very expensive. Then to build that green line, you're going through commercial properties. So circuitous of turn and access is terrible. And that is, again, commercial property, very expensive to buy. There'll be takings, remainders, damages. And then you're trying to say it's that much cheaper. I'm missing where the $18 million is. When you go through wetlands, it's a total take, it's not a partial take. You have no remainders, you have no damages, have no trials. I think that just the acquisition cost would be less, and the amount of road would be less going on the red. So I don't know where the $18 million is coming from. That's my opinion.
Thank you, sir. And Mohammed, if you would speak to that, because I do know that going through the wetlands is more than just going through the wetlands. We would be buying several apartment buildings as well. Could you tell us that dotted line, what's in the path of that?
Yes, so the original alignment, the red dotted line, so it goes over the wetlands, but that means long bridge structure to go over those wetlands. So bridges are very expensive, and then going over several apartment buildings, so of course that's expensive. versus this proposed alignment. So this does not exist today, but you don't necessarily directly impact any residences or businesses. But then rest of it, it's all public right-of-way already. We just upgraded, and that's actually right-of-way and construction, both are actually the two significant numbers where all that savings is coming from. And I just want to clarify one more thing that the other gentleman said, is at least this piece of the Warsaw connection or the Big Creek Phase 3, there is a private street, but then there is like a driveway off of which there is parking for all these buildings here. So we would not necessarily be directly impacting the parking for these apartment homes. There is a private road in the front that we would have to acquire, but their parking spots for these apartment homes would be off of a separate private driveway that'll just continue to exist after this.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Don Horton, 9885 Robin Wood Lane in Roswell. I have a major concern with this. I was on council when we voted on the priorities for the T-Splost, and we sold this to the community. And the Big Creek Parkway was, across the wetlands, was what we were selling. And people I'm talking to in Roswell, all around Roswell, are saying, you're changing the project on us that we voted for. We don't care about the $18 million savings. We care about what this is going to do for Roswell. And everybody's saying, it looks like if we go with the Holcomb Bridge interchange and have partner with GDOT, that we're basically giving benefit to more people outside of Roswell than people in Roswell. And I'm afraid that if we don't message this correctly, that we'll have a hard time passing anything like this in the future. They already don't trust us. And so if you do this without explaining exactly what those benefits are to the community and making sure that that message is very clear, whether it's a T-Splost in the future or a bond issue or whatever, we're going to have a hard time selling it to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else in the public that would like? Yes, sir, please come forward.
I'm Trent Perry. I've lived in Roswell also 32 years. I also commuted from my home on the east side to my offices in the perimeter for 25 years, most of which was down 400, and the rest was going eastbound on Holcomb Bridge through Dunwoody. I can attest to the fact that I don't believe that the majority of people that will use the upgraded 400 interchange will be from outside the city. I'm convinced that probably 50,000 or so residents of Roswell actually commute outside the city every day to work because they need the kind of jobs that support their income needs. And so to not take advantage of upgrading this intersection, which probably should have been upgraded 20 years ago, would be a wasted opportunity, and I think it would affect negatively a lot of residents' lifestyle because, again, we do not have the higher income jobs available in Roswell. We don't have the office complexes. We don't have a Windward Parkway. We don't have a Sandy Springs and perimeter office market and all the other jobs that are in our region outside the city. And I think this would revitalize, to upgrade, to take advantage of the opportunity to upgrade to 400 interchange, no matter what else our priorities are, is an opportunity I think that we should not pass by. And I don't know what the 60% ratio for our share is based on GDOT, but I would be interested in the quantitative support that GDOT has found to ask us for 60%. My guess is the net traffic impact of 70,000 on the west side of 400, 45,000 trips on the east side, the net impact to benefit our residents here is significant to upgrade that interchange. I don't know what the traffic count on Warsaw is. Anybody tell me that? At the 400, the Warsaw and Holcomb Bridge interchange, how many traffic counts are there?
I'll have staff answer those
Okay,
questions.
and anyway, I would question the economic impact of the money being spent on the Holcomb Bridge and Warsaw interchange and all the priorities that are diverted there versus the net impact that GDOT probably has quantified, and someone needs to, on the traffic benefits on the 400 interchange upgrade. There's got to be a significant rationale to deal with that 70,000 traffic count. I doubt it's pass-through. I don't think it's going to generate a lot of pass-through commuters because most people, I think, avoid that intersection as much as they can. I know I did when I finally could. But anyway, that's my comment. I think we need to do everything we can to get those 3 crossings funded and built as soon as possible. You know, again, I've lived here over 32 years, and I haven't seen much change at all in that interchange, except it just gets worse every year. Fortunately, I'm retired. I don't have to commute. So I do volunteer work. But every time I have to come west on Holcomb Bridge Road, and you all know it just as well as I do, it's awful. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Mohammed, could you answer the question about the traffic counts at Holcomb Bridge and Warsaw?
So I had the hourly turning movement counts on a slide already that I looked at, which is right here. So this is like, yellow is the AM peak hour, 1 hour, not the whole long 3-hour peak period. So 1 hour count in the AM and 1 hour, the yellow is the AM and the pink is the PM. So of course these two are the left turning numbers, these are the through numbers. So I have that, and then I also just looked up on my phone the average daily traffic on Warsaw north of Holcomb Bridge, so between Holcomb Bridge and Mansell. On a typical 24-hour workday, there is about 12,000 cars per day.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to come forward and speak? Okay, seeing no hands up, we'll bring it back to council, and staff needs to gauge the temperature because we've got a limited time to get this done. We'll have a public meeting, of course, on September 9th, which we'll discuss. It'll be open to the public for comment, but I believe staff would like to try to prepare for that meeting. So if we can just give them a read on what we're thinking. Yes, Councilmember Tyson.
Thank you. Mohammed, I'd like to see a couple of things. First thing I'd like to see is for you guys to get a little more comfortable that you can make the connection to Warsaw for us financially.
Okay.
I think you've got a lot of information, and a couple more weeks, I think you could be a little closer to where you need to be. What I'd like to see us do with GDOT is 2 things, and I really appreciate the partnership we're working on with them. This is a huge thing for the city of Roswell, and I think we'll be hearing about the benefits of it for a lot of years to come. I'd like to see us, and I think you've justified it very well, come back with our contribution of $15 million. But the one thing that I would like you to add is it should accompany, that the payments for this should accompany our receipt of the money. So whether we're getting it yearly or whether we're getting it, every 6 months, whatever it is, we need to match the inflow of funds with the outflow of funds. And I think that's a reasonable request.
Yes, I'm just looking at Ryan. We can make that happen, and we'll work with GDOT.
Yes, Councilmember Zapata.
Thank you, Mayor. So, can we go to the slide with the 2 designs, please? Perfect, thank you. So, could you tell us 2 pieces of information, either for the red, the original design, and the blue, the new design, in terms of how many miles is each of them from all Alabama to Warsaw, is the first question. And then will be the driving time from all Alabama to Warsaw on each of the two options that we have here on the screen.
So I'll take your questions in the reverse order. For the drive time, I mean, there is no telling. We're talking the area, Holcomb Ridge and around. So for the drive time, it just depends on the day and how much traffic there is. But for the distance, we had this slide 2 weeks ago at the work session. So from the Star here at Holcomb Ridge and Holcomb Woods Parkway to the Star here at Holcomb Ridge Road and Warsaw. So we calculated the three distances. If you continue on Holcomb Bridge, it's 1.5 mile. The existing alignment is the blue and then the dotted red, and then coming down Warsaw is 2.4 miles. And then the proposed alignment is this now, the blue, and then coming down, so blue all the way basically, and then exiting at Holcomb Bridge, and then drive into Warsaw, that's 2.9. So from the straight shot on Holcomb Bridge versus the proposed alignment is about double the distance.
So from all Alabama to Warsaw will be double the distance.
Yes.
Okay. So driving time, I'm sure that you model different time of the day, different scenarios, rush hour, midday, rush hour in the afternoon. So I'm sure that you have an idea in terms of how many miles will be each option and how much long it's going to take you one and the other one at different time of the day. So I'm sure that this have been done, and I hope that this have been done.
So the analysis, the way it's done is like I talked about the level of service before. The way all traffic analysis is done. Of course, we can do travel times as well, but the normal way to do traffic analysis is you look at average delay per vehicle in seconds per vehicle, basically. So we look at those numbers. I don't have them handy with me. But I can tell you, Rob, do we have any information on the slides to look at that? In general, I can answer this question in a more generic way, is that, like we just heard, most people now use, when they travel these congested corridors, they use, either Google Maps or Waze or any other apps. And most people have their GPSs set to the quickest way to get to where they are going. So I have been around in my 12 years. I had to do that commute on Holcomb Bridge for a couple of years, spread a few years. So when it's congested, I can tell you I live off of Rucker Road to get to Roswell East Park. I consistently took, rather than using Holcomb Bridge because it was so congested and would take me longer, what I would do is, coming from Rucker Road side, the west of the city, to go to the park is, and a lot of people do that, by the way, use Old Roswell or Grimes Bridge Road, go down, cross under 400 using Riverside, and then go all the way around, use Eves. So that's much, much longer, but that's definitely quicker when Holcomb Bridge is that congested, which is definitely during couple hours in the morning and couple hours in the afternoon. So there is travel time savings. And I'll actually say one more thing is, with everything that's happening in the area, if it all continues, like the express lanes, the express lane bridge to the south, the Big Creek Parkway, and if we get to the interchange rebuild, a lot is going to change. We can hope for a lot of improvements. But it's just that, in general, if you look at the safety and the safety concern and the congestion on Holcomb Bridge, I have said that this is not a problem that's going to take one or two solutions. It's going to take a multi-solution approach. And at least in staff's opinion, something like this, what we have on the recommended map, is what's going to take. But I'm sorry, I don't have exact future travel times. And even if we study them, it's going to be pretty hard to get them like close to accurate because just way too much is changing in the area, but all for good. Rob, do you want to add anything to that?
Well, maybe we can get this information before the 9th, and because you know how many miles, the speed limit, and then you can make assumptions of the traffic at this part of the day, so people really have an idea if they're going to be spending 10 more minutes on the original option versus the new option or not. This is what really the residents wants to know.
Sure, we'll
And
definitely.
how many more miles they're going to put in a car on one option versus the other option. So I think that having this information from the user resident, not engineering point of view, is important to know how many more miles you have to put in your car if you have to do this every day, and how long it's going to take you the original proposal versus a new proposal. So this is just from the regular user point of view. That
Sure,
have
we'll-
to have next.
We'll
meeting.
look into that, and we'll also see if GDOT's analysis has for the interchange, GDOT's analysis has any travel time information on that. We'll look into that.
Okay, and then back to the 60-40, like I said in the last meeting, that I don't think it's fair for Roswell taxpayers to pay more than 30%. These several counties who benefit out of that, like some of the residents mentioned today, that different counties, different cities use this exit or this enter to the 400. So I think that this has to be explained to GDOT at the highest level, that it's not fair to pay more than, I believe, more than 30% for Roswell. So that I said last meeting, and I will repeat this meeting again, and have to be understand how GDOT came to this offer of 60-40, if it's based on being the main corridor east-west north of 285, and its intersection is pure owned by GDOT, 400 and Holcomb Bridge. So asking Roswell taxpayers to pay more than 30%, I don't think is fair from the Roswell perspective.
Councilmember Judy.
So, thank you, Mohammed. Good presentation. Again, like I said before, having lived in Roswell, grown up here, 400's always been 400 and Holcomb Bridge is always, when you ask citizens, where's the largest traffic problem in the city, they always say Holcomb Bridge, almost to a T. And to not take this opportunity to do what we can with GDOT and partner, and from speaking with folks in other cities, council members, et cetera, GDOT's working with us. And for us to go back to them with a 40-60 split here, we could say 30%, we could pay 25%, and then turn this into a trust argument, which, I know it's election season, but if you're going to trust me, I want to make sure that Holcomb Bridge is redone before we lose the chance and 15, 20 years go by and Roswell continues to grow. And we have a real problem there versus the having it redone when we have the opportunity to. So for me, the 40-60 split, Roswell 40, GDOT 60 to go back on the counter, and the realignment works as well, in my opinion. So looking forward to hopefully getting this moving with GDOT and continuing to create a great relationship with them.
Councilmember Palermo.
Excellent. Thank you again, Mohammed. A lot of great information here. At Emory, we used to do a lot of case studies, and how we learned. I feel this could be a case study at a transportation school, at an engineering school, because the way I see it is, yes, if we stick with the red, I would think there's fewer cars on there than the blue, and therefore it goes a little faster. At the same time, if we go with the blue and the green, then what I think we potentially have is a lot of the residents and individuals within that triangle that are all just coming out on Holcomb Bridge right there, and then perhaps some of them taking a right on Warsaw, they're potentially not even getting on Holcomb Bridge Road, and that's potentially helping free up some space there as well. What I also heard is, I think it was Mr. Horton mentioned that, he's just hearing the $18 million is not important. And I think that's the wrong way to look at it, because I think it's not just a matter of $18 million that's just gonna be sat in the city's bank account, but instead it's really looking at the opportunity to improve Holcomb Bridge Road. Because I think it is this situation where, yes, will people from outside Roswell benefit from it? Absolutely they will, and absolutely GDOT should be paying the lion's share. Whether that means GDOT's paying 60% or 70%, I think that could deserve some more discussion. But ultimately, I think it is important for the people of Roswell to have Holcomb Bridge improved, and that's the opportunity that I think we have in front of us. So with that, Mohammed, for me, where my hesitation remains is, I mentioned last time that it's a deal breaker for me if it's not connecting to Warsaw, because I personally feel that does not meet the intent. So what I would like to see is some more definitive information on connecting that green line, and also timing. You have that starting in 2022. I'd like to see how we could do that quicker, because there's no reasons, just as there was the interest in having the Warsaw Road improvements occur simultaneously and perhaps even a little sooner, there's no reason we couldn't do the green, because my biggest fear is I don't want to set up this body for doing what looks like a promise, in my opinion, a promise of connecting to Warsaw being kept, but then we're doing it in a way where the cost becomes too high, the time becomes too long. I just want some assurances that it will be connecting to Warsaw truly as soon as possible.
So I just want to answer that. So, this is a plan. If we get the guidance to kind of move forward, and then the approval on September 9th, there is options in the future. You will see at this upcoming committee in a couple of days, we are going after some grant opportunities from ARC. Those opportunities come all the time. Like every year, there is at least 2 opportunities that come our way. If we have projects ready, if we have projects as part of a plan, if we have projects that make so much sense as the solid green line, it has a higher chance of getting the funding. If not next year, maybe the following year, maybe the following year. And that's only if we cannot do this in 5 million. The current project, T+1, we're still keeping 5 million for that. That's I think that is significant. I believe we could definitely make this one work. Schedule-wise, if we need to prioritize this, we can prioritize this. But please remember, we're dependent on how much revenue comes into the city. So if we are going to start the construction on phase 2, which is the most costly item, and phase 1 actually starts construction early next year, so we still want to have enough in the bank before we start spending. So staggering the couple of different phases, that's also a way to make sure we have enough money in the bank.
So I want to be very clear on my position. You've illustrated the value and the benefits of the Warsaw Road improvements. I absolutely see those, and I absolutely want to make those happen. To me, though, the fact the voters had this connecting to Warsaw Road, that is a bigger priority to me. So just as I want to see both done, if one was going to be going faster and one was going to be going slower, I'd want to make sure the connection to Warsaw Road is going slower, so that I can feel confident it's absolutely happening.
Pass.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, as per
It's a team effort here.
I guess per the guidance from 12 months ago, we are on a very fast pace for Big Creek Phase 1, hoping to start construction in the spring of 2020, which is in a few months, 6 months. But okay, thanks for the input.
Councilmember Wilsey.
Yes, thank you again for all the work that you've done and for working with GDOT. I think in a perfect world, we could do it just as it was designed originally and get the 400 interchange and the BRT connection. But, unfortunately, we've got a scarcity of resources, and that's kind of where we are, I think, is making some really, tough decisions. And, I think now we've got an opportunity to invest in a system solution where we were just looking at one option. I think it's really, a lot of considerations for us over the next couple of weeks. I would appreciate going back and talking to GDOT about the split and at least trying to get to a 40-60 and making sure that we get the Warsaw connection and the Holcomb Woods Parkway connection as soon as possible. So.
Thank you.
And let me just say this, I feel as though we're 95% there. I support the realignment, I support the projects within it, I support the fact that it is going to spur redevelopment as well as help our citizens get around Roswell. One of the things I'm still a little hesitant about is the bridges, the look and the feel of the bridges, because I think that will be a missed opportunity if we can't do more than just put up a black fence. I think that, we've got the deadline of September 9th, that you all have done a great job. You focused in, you gave us a starting point that we could go high-low, but what I'm hearing is that, we do have support for the 40-60 split. However, if we can do that and still get the other things we need, that's the caveat for me.
Yes.
And if we can't get the other things, then I think we need to look at, is that does that change by a couple of percentage points? I don't know.
Sure.
But I think you've gotten us close enough to get us to September 9th. And then, of course, if council has any other questions between now and then, you know where to find them.
Yes. So I do want to suggest
Yes.
one more thing that you will learn at this committee in a couple of days, that we are hungry for money. We are always looking for it. So we have 2 application requests to the mayor and council to let us move forward for grants, not for these different projects. And we'll have one more coming up actually at the admin committee in September. So that's what we do. We always look for more money. So yes, we were talking about a few years of implementation for all the phases. So we'll definitely be looking for more money to make sure of the Warsaw connection and the bridge aesthetics. If we can find more money, we'll definitely go after that.
And let me add to that, Commissioner McMurray has told us that as far as the MARTA BRT goes, that he will facilitate looking at other funding sources for that as well, so that MARTA doesn't ask us to go out for a referendum. And that would be a great, great thing. So,
Yes.
okay, we are adjourned.